Urban Crag Climbing Center is a rock gym located in Dayton, Ohio, with 8,000 feet of textured and sculpted vertical terrain ranging from 28 to 56 feet. For more info, go to urbancrag.com or call 937-224-CRAG. I'm here with Melanie Houston. Tell me about your organization, and then we want to talk about fracking and how it relates to Dayton, Ohio, and I'll tell you about Dayton, our water concerns. But first, tell me about your organization.
Sure. So I'm working with, I'm Director of Water Policy and Environmental Health with the Ohio Environmental Council, and we are a statewide environmental advocacy organization with over 100 group members and over 1,000 individual members. And so we take a look at water policy and advocacy specifically.
Okay, and what kind of background do you have in this area?
Sure. Well, I have a background in environmental studies, undergraduate degree, and graduate degree Master of Science from Ohio State University in 2010, and had some nonprofit experiences working in the environmental nonprofit sector, and a little time working for the U.S. federal government with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service.
Okay. Well, with that background known, tell us, we've got a situation here in Dayton where there's some fracking concerns kind of on the outer edges of Dayton, but one of the big things that the city really promotes in its efforts to try to spur up economic development here is the Great Miami Watershed, as we have a huge and excellent water supply here in Dayton. We've got some of the cleanest water of any municipality around, I know, or in the country, and it's one of the things that's like one of our major strengths. And having watched the movie Gasland a year or so ago, I know that the practice of fracking brings up a lot of concern for water supplies. Could you tell me, what maybe something in another part of the state? What are we looking at as far as keeping our water drinking, or our drinking water supplies and just water supplies in general clean with the fracking controversy, and what people need to know that possibly they don't know right now?
Well, certainly. I think you raise excellent concerns here, and concerns that we have at the Ohio Environmental Council are both in the arena of water quality and water quantity concerns. So to start with, we know that the horizontal hydro or hydraulic fracturing, hydrofracking for short, industry is a relatively new industry, and in terms of the water use that is involved in that industry, we're talking, the estimates range, but 3 to 6 million gallons worth of water for each well, and often that's a fresh water use. And so we have a real concern with the water consumption piece, and particularly because in many industries, water is used, but then cleaned and returned to the water cycle. And with this particular oil and gas industry, this fracking industry, the water is not returned to the water cycle because it is laced with a variety of different chemicals, which cause it to become slick water and to serve its function and purpose for recovering the natural gas. The water becomes essentially non-usable, non-returnable to the water source, but then has to be disposed of in deep injection wells here in Ohio. So from a water consumption, water quantity perspective, we have serious concerns, for our recreational uses of our waters, our lakes, our reservoirs, and in terms of wildlife for our rivers and streams, particularly in drought conditions. We wouldn't want to see rivers or streams be dewatered, or fish kills potentially occur. And then there's the whole water quality side of things. And We have seen accidents over in our sister state in Pennsylvania. We have seen many reported cases of violations, surface level spills, casing around the wells not properly cased and sealed off from the surface level, and that has resulted um, in some serious water quality concerns at the surface water level. Of
Yeah,
course, also, go ahead.
I've seen, like I said earlier, I've seen in the movie Gasland where some of the people actually were able to light their water on fire. Now, how does that happen? You know, I know the fracking process puts just like a giant chemical bouillabaisse into the ground at like high level pressures. Am I correct?
Right. Well, yes, this
How's that
water
all
being
resulting in gas coming out of the sinks and what we see in, you know, like I said, in Gasland?
right, and this is a very technical issue, and it's difficult to sometimes get a handle around exactly where this migration may be occurring with the natural gas. There is a great study you might take a look at, or your viewers might take a look at it at Duke University that looked at this natural gas occurrence. Levels of natural gas in drinking water wells within, I believe, 1,000 kilometers of homes that were within 1,000 kilometers of natural gas fracking, essentially development, and those outside of that range. And they, this is a peer-reviewed scientific study, and they found a significant difference between those. But it's possible for there to be natural fissures and faults in the ground that maybe are undetected when these wells are drilled. There is potential for cement does crack, as we all know, and we see on sidewalks that we walk on. There is potential in freezing and thawing conditions, and with, again, the natural fissures and the faults, depending on the geology, there's a potential for there to be errors either in the placing of the cement or cracks that might occur that might allow for some of this material to come out of its safe zone and out into the rock and to migrate into the aquifers. I think there's still much science and learning to be done on why this is occurring, because it's such a new technology. And really the crux of the OEC's our organization's stance on this is, let's slow down, let's take time to really gather the science and to know that we have the proper safeguards in place, to know that this can be done safely before proceeding ahead so quickly.
100 shirts for only $395. 20 shirts for only $100.
Greenleaf Printing and Designs has stupendous signage, printed and embroidered apparel, and promotional products for you. They're at 5526 Burkhart Road in Dayton and on the web at greenleafprinting.com. What will it take to know whether this can be done safely? I mean, shouldn't it be known that it can be done safely or not before it's ever done or not?
Well, that is certainly the approach that we would advocate here at the Ohio Environmental Council, sort of a precautionary principle as opposed to rushing ahead. But, we're up against an economic argument, really, in the state of Ohio, in a time where we're in a tough economy and where jobs are of utmost importance. I think the other side of the argument is the economic piece. But our job is to look out for the health and safety of Ohioans, for those, who call Ohio home, and caring for the air, land, and water. And so we have some real concerns here, and we think that Ohioans and our members have these concerns as well. And yes, so to answer your question, yes, we should know before we proceed.
And what kind of health problems are we seeing around active fracking sites in other states?
I'm sorry, David, could you repeat that question? I missed.
No problem. What kind of health problems have we seen around, like within that 1,000 kilometer range, in around active fracking sites in other states?
Certainly. Well, I can tell you, from what I am reading in terms of news reports, there are air sorts of air emission related health effects. So there was a report recently issued. I'd have to look back at my notes, but relating cancer rates to diesel exhaust emissions, for example. And we know, again, with this industry, there will be, due to the massive amounts of water to be used, there'll be massive numbers of truck trips or truck traffic. I think 900 to 1,300 truck trips to carry the water, the sand, the materials, the chemicals that will be needed for this industry. And so that is not a matter of if, but when, that there will be many additional air emissions and to homeowners that live very close to this sort of industrial development. That will cause some real health concerns on the ground, whether it be asthma, long-term sorts of heightened risks, or whether that might be related to heart conditions, and heart disease have also been linked to diesel exhaust and air pollution. And there have been a few academic studies as well linking domestic animals, the deaths of cattle in particular, drinking water, wastewater from the hydrofracking industry. There have been connection to deaths of domestic farm animals.
If you were a Dayton City Commissioner at this time, would you be worried with the atmosphere in Ohio that our aquifer could end up being polluted because of what's going on right now?
Well, I certainly would want to be educating myself, I think, if I were a public official right now and a local official. And there's a lot of conversation, a lot of work being done around what can local communities do, steps to put in place to at the first step to educate oneself, and then the second step to figure out what protections or safeguards could the local community put in place. One particular note, however, is that in Ohio, it is our Ohio Department of Natural Resources that has, in the law stated the sole and exclusive authority of permitting these oil and gas wells, so including these fracking wells. And so communities may need to get creative in terms of passing local ordinances, looking at protecting their public sources of water, so source water protection, as well as floodplain areas that might be more vulnerable. So there are some things that communities can be doing, but the first step is really to educate themselves and really fully embrace that responsibility for protecting the citizens in their community.
Excellent. This weekend, I believe, there's a march in Columbus regarding fracking. Am I correct?
That is right, and that is
We're gonna be up there,
350.org is leading the organizing efforts there, and activities going on Thursday through Sunday, I believe, and I'll be participating and attending some of those actually tomorrow morning with colleagues, and would urge folks to take a look at that, some useful information. Additionally, I'd like to let you know that the Ohio Environmental Council is planning a series of educational forums around fracking this summer in June and July. We have 11 forums planned, and I would be happy to share those with you. Unfortunately, we do not have any in Dayton. They are taking place, this first series, throughout the eastern part of the state, but perhaps there are viewers that might be interested in traveling a bit to see some of those.
We'll provide a link to your guys' website so they can keep up with all the events and different things that are going around this and educate themselves, because there's nothing really more important than our air and our water, and fracking is an issue that people have questions about both. So I really appreciate your time today.
I appreciate you contacting me, and appreciate this phone call.
Oh.
Where have you been?
I was shopping.
You've been out with Ruben, haven't you? It's all over your face.